I'm Brian Argrett, CEO, President and CEO of City First Bank of DC, which is in Washington, DC. The way City First was founded completely impacts and sets the course for what we do today. So what's unusual about the bank is that it really came out of activism, so to speak, or out of community engagement, in the sense that it was founded by individuals who saw in Washington, D.C. that there were neighborhoods that essentially where capital was not flowing, where there had been large-scale disinvestment, where really the banking community was not interested, and they came together to fashion a solution of how to assist in having capital flow. They chose the banking model, obviously because of the benefits of leverage through deposits, so that you would raise a certain amount of capital, and then you could also raise additional funds through deposits and have a larger impact in your lending. What they did, though, was they formed a nonprofit to really be the control shareholder, the founder of the bank. And to this day, that nonprofit is the largest single owner of the bank. It has voting control of the bank. And then they sold shares to, other investors who also shared that vision. So what does that mean on the ground? It means at the heart of this for-profit bank in Washington, City First Bank of DC, we really have kind of the history and the essence. I say nonprofit spirit kind of flows through our veins. So there's really a sense of wanting to and needing to and being put here to really benefit those underlying communities. In Washington, D.C., you have, as you have in many cities, very clear barriers, whether you see them or not. Sometimes they're physical barriers for where capital has flowed and where it hasn't. And they often correlate very strongly with the ethnicity, in many cases, of the population. And so you've had some really sharp lines. In Washington, one of those lines is the Anacostia River, which separates portions of southeast Washington from the rest. We have been very active in really caring about and investing and lending in what we call east of the river, southeast Washington, D.C., and have been fortunate to be able to participate with other actors in the community to be able to fund projects that will make a difference. The way we like to look at them is catalytic projects that will start something that the community and other capital providers can help to, I won't say finish because your work's never finished, but to continue to urge along. Yes, it's a really interesting question because you really have to be engaged and not from afar, kind of throwing in benefits or throwing in opportunities. But it's also difficult because as a bank, you're not doing the work. You're providing the capital in large part to those who are doing the work. So what it means is, for me and what I've found, is you're very intentional. First of all, you have to be intentional. That's the answer. You have to be very intentional. And that means who you're choosing to work with and who you're choosing to partner with to figure out what work needs to be done. Sounds easy, but it's not necessarily, because everyone has different interests in an evolving community. So one of the things, for example, that we're doing to kind of do a little bit of a reset and continuation of our efforts is actually in a couple of weeks, a week and a half from Wednesday. We're having a large forum. We're calling it a summit. It's focused completely on east of the river, and we're bringing together all of the stakeholders who might be involved in and might be interested and are interested in a more equitable economic development east of the river. So this is a community in Washington where economic development is coming. And the question is, as it comes, how can we make sure that resources are more fully shared by the community? So to do that, you need to bring together everyone who has a stake, including the city government, the residents, the nonprofits that are working within that community, the for-profit developers who have an interest in the commercial corridors and housing, and the nonprofit providers, as well as other financing sources. And what we're trying to do is bring them together, talk about the tough issues, everything from gentrification to job creation to entrepreneurialism within a specific community, and come out of that with hopefully stronger connections, better insight, maybe a little bit of a policy paper to be able to decide how we should encourage this on a go-forward basis. And then, of course, for ourselves, greater clarity on where the needs are and how they might be bridged. So things like that, which you can't do every day, but when you have the opportunity to do, can give you great insight and also connect you in a greater manner to the other folks who are involved, engaged, and interested in whatever that charge might be. In this case, equitable development within this community. The real big challenge in engaging with the neighborhoods parallels the challenge of the business, and it's really just balance, right? In everything we do, we're always balancing different interests that don't necessarily run parallel. It's been interesting for us because where the bank is located is at a corner of 14th and U Street in Northwest Washington, which was an area when we first located that had been in our target area, and then over the years had changed as more and more investment had come in. In the early years, we were focused on really creating housing, rehabilitating physical structures for use, putting them back in service, clearly on retail and on bringing in jobs and businesses into the area. But as the area became more successful in those endeavors, then our focus needed to shift to preservation of affordable housing, because now in a market where the values had risen, you were creating some real dilemmas for, well, how will folks be able to stay and enjoy that? And for those who did, are the social services that may be helpful to families still going to be available, because they may also be displaced? So it's a huge issue, but I think as a community development organization and a values-based bank, our job is to try and really figure out how to fit into that and make a difference, but also be flexible enough to recognize that those needs may change over time. When we were talking about our work east of the river, we're trying to get ahead of that curve so that we have an opportunity to say, let's not have to react, let's get out front and try and develop some new techniques, be it, for example, land banking that might be used for the city to acquire significant real estate within a community where you know it's going to appreciate, and then be able to use that in trades or in development for more affordable uses when you know down the line that's where you're going. I think the first thing that has to be in place is intentionality. So you have to, or community or a set of leaders or organizers of an institution really do have to be very intentional that they're trying to solve a problem and at the same time create an institution that'll be there for the long run. And so balance again comes into play. They need to hire and work with very spirited but very experienced individuals who can help bring that to fruition. Obviously, it requires capital. That is the one of the most important component parts. And it also requires, I believe, the government, be it the municipal government or perhaps the federal government, to be a player. Because at the end of the day, the issues that, particularly in community development, that you are concerned with really are the interest of the entirety of the people, and hence the government also has a role in that regard.